Watch this.
What I am against is making sure that we don't let those dollars go out the door without accountability.
Accountability is the key word in the race for a school choice bill. And one bill might be ahead right now, despite hundreds who would like to see it pulled. It may have taken years to get a library bill passed through the State House, but it's only taken less than 1 year for 2 lawsuits to be filed against it. Our Inside Ag is looking into chicken coops and a new law to protect them against HOAs. Some are calling it the Free the Chicken bill. Are they? Is this the best option for Idaho to pay for private school tuition with public dollars? Some senators think so, which is why they sent Senator Dave Lent's bill through the committee to the entire chamber to discuss. Senate Bill 1025 will expand the state's Empowering Parents program, giving it an additional $50 million, some of which would be allowed for private school tuition. Yesterday, the bill got a hearing in the Senate Education Committee. More than 440 people signed up to testify. So many, the committee room and the room across the hall were filled with those waiting to give their 2 cents. Of course, not everyone got the chance to do so, but those that did, overwhelmingly, they were not in favor of this bill. But one of the 2 Democrats was the deciding vote, with Senator Carrie Semmelroth's yes sending it to the Senate floor by a 5-4 tally. Espen Shumpert has the story.
I believe this bill is unconstitutional, having looked at Article 9, Section 5, where it says no appropriation of public funds should go to a religious entity.
Monday's Senate Education Committee meeting had lawmakers debating if taxpayer dollars should be used for private school tuition.
I have to come forward and say, when I compare to some of the other proposals I've heard, if we're going to be considering a proposal, I would much rather consider this piece than the others.
Senator Dave Lent's bill, which the committee closely voted 5-4 to send to the Senate floor, would allow for $30 million to special education in public schools and another $20 million to Idaho's Empowering Parents program, allowing grants from that program to be used on private school tuition.
It's intended to be more of a governance perspective, realizing that there's people on both sides of this issue.
Lent says this bill is a compromise to meet the people on both sides of school choice views in the middle.
It has become clear in this last year with what's happening with the Trump administration, their direction, and also our current governor and his direction. If we're going down that road, then let's see if we can write some legislation that keeps it within the bounds.
He says it's either be part of the game or on the bench.
There's the do nothing and completely resist and say we're not going to go down the road at all. There's the option that we are going to go down the road and favor less and less accountability. And I know other bills that are in circulation now range from no accountability to just some light touch of accountability to the third version, which is in the middle, which is what we tried to do.
Hundreds of people asked to testify in Monday's committee hearing. Cassie Horner, a public school teacher in the Boise School District, was one of 16 who were chosen.
I do think it's important that parents get to pick where they go, but I think that tax dollars are more important to be spending the public education, going to public education, because that's what needs to be funded. And it's already underfunded. It's already struggling.
Lent believes his bill addresses accountability with requirements that will be asked of private schools.
They would have to have background checks of the people who work there. They would have to do some kind of standardized testing. They would have to be associated with some sort of accreditation.
But the bill also scales down reporting requirements for public schools to just federal requirements, like financial reports and compliance examinations.
If we're really going to change public education and help it be successful, in the future, we have to make some difficult changes with the way we currently do business.
That is a concern to Horner.
My concern is the students. So when we're not funding those students and we are not reporting on the students, then we're going to start seeing our education numbers in our nation drop even further than what they are.
Lentz bill will get more discussion when it does hit the Senate floor. Now, I asked him if he felt confident that it would make it through the Senate. He said not necessarily with a bill like this with heavy views on both sides. Brian, we know Wendy Horman's school
Tax
choice
credit bill, yeah.
Correct, in the form of tax credit. That's getting its hearing tomorrow, so we'll be able to kind of compare what lawmakers are thinking on both of these bills.
Okay, I misspoke. Now, quickly walk me through this
Yeah.
Empowering Parents program. It's not getting an additional $50 million.
Correct.
But that $20 million, want to push it up to $50 million? Is that what it
Yep,
is?
so they currently operate with a $30 million budget right now.
Okay.
They're going to, proposed legislation would give them an extra $20 million to get them up to that $50 million.
Okay, so that 5-4 vote in committee, though, shows you how tight this
Very narrow.
decision-making is. And as he mentioned, those people who really want less and less accountability, they may vote this one down as well. So we'll see. All right.
Yep.
Still a couple more out there. Thank you very much, Aspen. All right, well, your daily reminder that whatever is old is new again at the Idaho State House. That one is one of them, but there are more because you can call it old, but maybe it just wasn't good enough before. There's been a lot of, hey, let's run that one back with lawmakers this session, either as is or with a few tweaks. Today's example, that comes from a lawmaker up north from North Idaho who wants to limit who can request an absentee ballot. Again, Republican Representative Joe Alfieri presented House Bill 139 to the House State Affairs Committee, something he did twice in 2023 with Representative Kingsley as a co-sponsor, and something Kingsley did himself twice again last session. Only one of those bills, though, made it out of committee. That'd be Alfieri's House Bill 205 back in 2023, only to have it die on the House floor. That bill would have only allowed absentee ballots to people who are either active in the military, they're sick or disabled, going to school somewhere else on Election Day, they're on a religious mission maybe, living out of the state at the time, or maybe they live in a precinct that does only mail-in ballots. So this year, Alfieri says he added those 65 or older to that list. Everyone else, well, you just have to vote in person either early or on Election Day. But even this year, we saw some of the same questions because that does leave out a lot of people who have used absentee ballots in the past, like stay-at-home moms with lots of kids or ranchers or farmers.
So who's going to determine that? Is that going to be the county clerks that determine that? And, you know, I look in Wyatt County, our clerk knows who these folks are and that those possibilities exist. Is that who's going to declare that?
Alfieri.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Dygart, sir, we're on an honor system. We would expect that you would obey the law. We're not going to be asking the clerks to follow up and to determine that that person actually has a reason for it. We're just telling people that if you do this, you commit fraud if you misapply for an absentee.
The honor system, he says, kind of like what we've been doing now, right? Representative Alfieri says absentee ballots are ripe for fraud. Where have you heard that before? And he was asked to present specific evidence should this bill get a public hearing of this fraud. Alfieri also said he had numbers to show absentee ballots actually decrease voter turnout, although most studies that we looked into today show states who vote by mail actually see higher turnout numbers. The bill was printed, but we'll see how far it goes from here. Idaho's library law, the Keeping Harmful Materials from Minors law, is getting its second legal challenge. House Bill 710 was passed in 2024, and it went into effect last July. The purpose was to keep certain books out of the kids section of the library. Those things the law deems harmful, anything obscene, what it defines as sexual, any sexual conduct, or any act of homosexuality. Even before the law was signed by the governor, the blowback began in local libraries, from the Nampa School District removing 22 books forever back in 2022, to the Eagle Library relocating nearly 24 last September, and then Kootenai County's library system just removing 140 titles to be reviewed just last month. Other libraries, like Idaho Falls, they made entire sections accessible to kids only when accompanied by an adult. Even further, the Donnelly Library, who made their whole one-room building adults only. So there was a lawsuit filed shortly after that law went into effect last July, because the law also applied to private school libraries, and that threatened their and their parents' independence and, of course, their First Amendment rights, they said. The lawsuit filed today widens that net a bit to include public libraries, but the claims remain the same. Idaho's library law violates the First and 14th Amendments, they say. The plaintiffs this time, that'd be book publishers, authors, a couple of students, and the Donnelly Public Library. You might remember we spoke with the library director last May when they decided their only recourse, because they only have 1,024 square feet to work with, was to make the entire library adults only.
I don't have an extra room. I don't have a place to put it. And those children deserve to have literature that reflects them.
Okay, so now that law has been in effect for 8 months, and attorneys for the plaintiffs feel they now have enough evidence to show that the law is harmful and infringing on the right to free speech and access to books. For example, the 2 high school students who joined the lawsuit say they can't get the books they need and want in their school libraries. J.E. is a 17-year-old student in Lewiston. She's taking dual credit courses through Lewis Clark State College. But House Bill 710 treats her much like a much younger child. The same school district that allows me to voluntarily engage with materials that are eligible for both high school and college credit hypocritically has the authority to limit my voluntary access to books that are appropriate for me in my own school library. Another student from Rocky Mountain High School in Meridian also happens to be 18 years old. House Bill 710 undermines my personal and academic growth, she said. It obstructs my access to the marketplace of ideas and critical information on topics like science, history, and politics. Information vital to my participation in a robust democratic society. Okay, so now the damages are not hypothetical anymore, much like with the Donnelly Public Library. Library Director Sherry Sheline looked at the circulation numbers for the 3 months after they went adult only and compared them to years prior. She said they dropped by 44%. 44%, we're told. And it's not just in books, because they do a lot more at the Donnelly Library, like they feed hungry kids. But she said people just stopped coming.
I think a lot of our families that had before, they just don't understand the nuances of it either. And so I think that they maybe stayed away from the library for reasons that they just don't understand. Because the words adult only are always just thrown around, and they don't want their kids in an adult only place, but yet we're still welcoming to children. And I think that scared people off. Our mission has always remained the same. We want to be a place of education. We love children. We want to be that anchor community in our town. But I do think it scared people off.
Well, so I can assume that's why you wanted to join this lawsuit, so you can take that off your library.
Yeah, I feel like gross legislation is disproportionately impacting small and rural libraries. Censorship legislation in any capacity is presented to small and rural libraries. It's really hard for us. It's hard for us to interpret the law because we're not lawyers, nor do we have a lawyer on retainer. For us, joining the lawsuit is really, we just want to do the right thing. And the right thing is that censorship is the greatest threat to democracy. And we have to fight that. We have to protect the books. We cannot protect the children if we don't protect the books.
Sherry told us their entire budget is $75,000. And if they had to set aside a retainer for a lawyer, should someone claim that they had harmful materials in their building, that would take about 10% of their budget. This lawsuit claims the library law not only violates the First and 14th Amendments, but it doesn't consider the merit of the material. It's too vague and it's too broad because it's difficult for libraries to determine what complies with the law, and it doesn't distinguish by age or grade level, as you heard from those students. Just because it's too much for a 10-year-old, does that make it too much for a 17-year-old? That's the kind of question these attorneys and this lawsuit is trying to solve. Sherry and her attorneys would like to see the library law scrapped entirely, but short of that, she just wishes legislators would more closely consider the impact of their laws on smaller communities. While enforcement of this law is the responsibility of private citizens, Idaho's Attorney General, several county prosecutors, and the city of Eagle are named as defendants because, well, they can ultimately bring a cause of action against the library. Attorney General Raul Labrador's office said they don't comment on pending litigation.
I like to fondly refer to it as the Free the Chicken bill.
Oh, so that's who's calling it the Free the Chicken bill. Now I got it. Okay. So I guess the age-old question, why did the chicken cross the road? Or in Idaho, why can't the chicken cross the road? Because, well, some HOAs in this state won't let them. That's why. And that's what Senate Bill 1026 wants to change. Hunter Funk listened in on this hearing today and found this new bill could make it easier for homeowners that aren't allowed to have chickens in their backyard.
Yeah, raising chickens at home isn't a concept it's been a concept, and it's been a concept for a really long time. Now, during both world wars, raising chickens was considered a patriotic duty to support the war effort. Now, people would be there to provide a stable food source. Since then, food production had scaled up and became easier to get at stores, and that's when chicken farming really declined. But within the last few years, backyard chicken ownership began booming, in part because egg prices are skyrocketing. Now, the issue for some, they're learning that they can't have a chicken in an urban area. This bill, introduced in the Senate Ag Committee, wouldn't impact city or county regulations, meaning local governments still have control over poultry regulations, but it would ruffle the feathers of what the neighborhood's homeowners association allows or doesn't allow. This bill would allow HOAs to control things like waste management, chicken coop placement, and prohibiting roosters, but they wouldn't be able to control the homeowner from owning up to 4 chickens on properties that are at least 2/10 of an acre in size.
Senate Bill 1026 ensures that homeowners and HOAs have the same rights as those not governed by HOAs to own a limited number of backyard chickens. However, it does not impact any city or county ordinances, meaning local governments will still have control over poultry regulations outside of HOAs.
A homeowner from Eagle and Rupert testified in favor of the bill. Now, Senator Ron Taylor was concerned about the term small-scale livestock or poultry in the text and how it could open the door to other animals like pigs and goats. But Senator Nichols argued it would just be chickens under that category. Senator Taylor was the only one who voted against the bill, and it passed committee, so now it heads to the Senate floor for further debate. Now, coming up at 6, we're going to look at the cost of eggs and how one restaurant chain is making some surcharges.
Yeah, they seem to be the barometer for all things tragic in this country right now. So the fact that they're adding a surcharge to eggs, well, that might make a difference for a lot.
Yeah, it's got to be tough.
All right. Thanks, Hunter. See that at 6. Well, the confusion continues over President Donald Trump's executive orders. This time it's about the abolishment of the Department of Education. But should we be worried about that? Hunter Funk, who's just here, can tell us more about that in today's 411.
Idaho Superintendent of Public Instruction Debbie Critchfield is preparing for the executive order that President Donald Trump is preparing to abolish the Education Department. Remember, President Trump can't just get rid of a federal agency unless Congress signs off on it. But Critchfield isn't totally against the idea. She said she's all in favor of more state control for K-12 public schools. But she needs to know how it'll affect federal funding for schools.
Is this if we could turn back time?
I was hoping for some walk-up music.
I should have had that prep today. That's on the
Does anybody
chairman.
know what time it is or something along those lines?
Does anybody really know what time it is?
Running back the same bill to run the clock forward. For good. A bill was introduced today to stop daylight savings time and to stay in standard time all year round. If you feel like this is deja vu, you're right, because what's old is new this legislative session, including this daylight saving bill. The Idaho Sled Dog Challenge Board of Directors canceled 3 of the 100s races at Little Ski Hill because of avalanche danger. But the 100s race that are still out on the track can finish at the Y campground. The 200s races that would be taking off at the Y campground are also canceled. Everyone racing is safe. Now you can find the latest on our website at ktvb.com. Boise City Council is honoring Jerome Mapp at tonight's 6 p.m. meeting. Mapp made history as the city's first black council member. He served 3 terms from 1993 to 2005, including a brief stint as acting mayor in 2004. During his 13 years of service, he championed public transportation, parks expansion, and made Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a city holiday. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Hunter Funk.
Well, mild air streaming in from the south kept portions of our viewing area very warm today. Twin Falls hit 55 degrees, 3 degrees shy of a record high for February 4th. Boise got to 53 degrees, but you can see out in Ontario, only 38. Colder air off to the northwest, and that cold air has already started advancing into the Treasure Valley. We're sitting at 40 now in Boise. We hit our high temperature midday, and we've seen those temperatures declining down to 49 in Twin Falls right now. Still 41, though, in Sun Valley. Colder air in McCall in the upper 30s. We're still seeing wet weather streaming in as well. Most of this has been north and east of the Boise area today, but I do think we'll start seeing some rain showers already over the lower Treasure Valley, moving to the east over the next several hours. So some splash and dash type showers tonight through the Treasure and Magic Valleys, and continued snow up in the mountains, where we also continue to see winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings, along with those backcountry avalanche warnings through tomorrow morning for continued accumulating snow. But I think for the most part, the heaviest snow in places like McCall is over and done with by maybe 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then behind a cold front that will come through tonight, temperatures drop. We'll sit in the mid-20s in the McCall area tomorrow, from the 50s today to the low 40s for your Wednesday in Boise, along with some very breezy conditions, but some sunshine emerging as well. Rain tonight, drier tomorrow. We stay dry on Thursday. Then Friday is our next shot of snow with another system coming in. First alert weather conditions Friday for another 1 to 2 inches right here in Boise.
All right, we get this question all the time when it comes to school choice in Idaho. This one from Tony in Boise. Can Idaho tax money be used to send my kid to the Hellion Academy run by the Satanist or any non-Christian religion recognized by the IRS under this new bill? I guess if they're not putting any rails on it, you probably could. I'm sure if that's what you want to do, that would be the parameters that really aren't there. 1025 is the fleecing of Idaho taxpayers. I don't want my taxes to pay for any private entity or organization, and that's just because my country is based on all citizens, not just a few private citizens, says Larry. Meanwhile, this one, I think, from Deb says it's a bit hypocritical for Dave Lent to say that his bill provides for accountability when it mentions Idaho state reporting requirements will be stripped out. And again, if that's supposed to be a local level, like school districts, and then the state kind of depends or decides on curriculum, but mostly the school district level, yeah, if you just hold people accountable to the federal level, it's a bit broader than maybe most people really want in the state of Idaho. I hope Idaho loses the library lawsuit, says Jack in Boise. I wish those that supported the said law would have to pay for its defense. They kind of do through taxes, and that's why they have the legal defense fund set up. Our legislators need to be reminded of the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what Gary in Nampa says. You could say that a lot this session. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.